With that being said, speaking of money printing machine, what has Ava's biggest month been here at One Call Closers in high ticket sales?
My biggest month for me, with a few bonuses added in, I think it was like $50,000.
$50,000! Jeez Louise, guys, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
People have to work an entire freaking year here in the States or in Canada to make $50,000. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Closers Network podcast. Guys, you probably see today we're outside of our usual setting, and if you're seeing that, you're probably seeing things correctly because we are. Because, guys, we actually came out to Florida for Patrick Bet-David's The Vault event, and we brought about 20 plus of our team members, some of the top reps within our organization, One Call Closers, to do some team building, hanging out, improving, learning, and getting to that next level, guys. It's always about the next level. But guys, today I'm excited to introduce our guest. On the show, we have a very special guest today in the world of high ticket sales, someone who has turned the pandemic into a personal development revolution. 4 years ago, our guest started to build a personal brand on TikTok, focusing on mindset and self-improvement. And in less than a year, grew that brand to over 1 million followers, all organically. From mindset coaching to becoming consistently the #1 rep at One Call Closers on the offer that she represents. Yes, I said the #1 rep on the offer she represents. She's closed over $2 million in just the last 8 months alone in cash collected, guys, with a record-breaking month of $350,000. She's one of the top income earners in One Call Closers year to date. But hey, her story is not just about numbers. It's about resilience. It's about discipline. Her incredible journey of using personal challenges to fuel her success. She's someone who's learned the hard way that while making money is a great tool, it's your health and relationships that really bring you inner peace that truly matter. Today, she's here to share mindset shifts that's really helped propel her to the top, the importance of empathy in sales, and why discipline trumps motivation every single time. Get ready to be inspired by a sales superstar who's redefining what it means to succeed both personally and professionally. She's probably the most discussed closer within our sales agency. She sets new standards for new reps and seasoned reps alike. Please help me welcome to the show, Ava Mistruzzi. Ava, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Mike. I'm so grateful to be here.
Awesome. I'm excited to have you. This has been a long time in the making, and I'm glad we made it happen because I know it's a little tough to get you down to California because we're so far apart. But hey, I'm excited. We're here now, and I want to get in. I want to start, Ava, if you can kind of help us understand, like, what was it during the pandemic that really sparked and like gave you that spark to like get into personal development?
That's a great question. I just want to say I'm grateful to be here. First of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you.
But for me, I believe in order to discover something new and really figure out who you are, you need isolation. That's huge. So for me, I was in school at the time. Of course, with the pandemic, kind of shut things down. I couldn't see friends, couldn't see family. It was a very isolated time.
Yep.
But I'm sure we've all heard the quote, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're so isolated, it's not necessarily the people you're with. For me, it was more like the books I'm reading, you know, the videos I'm watching, the podcasts I'm listening to. So instead of using that time to just consume mindless social media or negative content, I wanted to use it to develop myself. So I started reading books like Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People, like all the typical stuff.
Yeah.
So that just really sparked that within me, and I started learning from people who were 100 times ahead of me and just getting those mental frameworks in place. I believe in manifestation, law of attraction, all of that. If you want to become someone who you want to be and you want to get to the next level, you have to start acting like the person that you want to be. So for me, that's what I was doing. I was already in the mindset that, okay, I'm already earning this amount. I present myself a certain way, think a certain way. So that's when I started developing myself.
That's incredible. Just curious, like, did you always have a bug to kind of to grow and to get to a next level? Was that Was there like maybe a specific person you followed on social media, and maybe you saw something like a post or something that really inspired you? Like, how did that maybe come together? Do you remember it all? Like, was it just people you were following in the online space, maybe good influencers, like people that kind of turned you on to that stuff? Or like, do you have any idea how that came about?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I was always a perfectionist, always a top performer. Even in school, I was always straight A student. Like, I've always been very, very hardworking.
Awesome.
I thank my parents for that. They really instilled in me that hard work pays off 100%. Anything that's worthwhile, you have to put in the work, do what you want to do, even when you don't want to do it. But to answer your question, there was someone on social media who was really inspiring me. His name is Alex Sedlak. He's a pretty known name.
Okay.
He was posting a lot about like self-improvement, law of attraction, and I was like, oh my goodness, I really resonate with a lot of these things he's saying. And oftentimes we let people's opinions get in the way of doing something that we want to do.
That's
so taking that first step to start posting and putting myself out there on social media was terrifying. And I had literally no idea what I was doing. Same thing in sales. My first sales call, I was like, all right, I got the script down, but let's just go and do it. Like, I'm the type of person where I don't think you need to be an expert in everything right away. Like, you just go in and you do it.
That's right.
That's what I believe.
I love that. I love that, man. That's so awesome. That's really inspiring, and it just goes to show, right? If you come across the right influencer, the right person, and you have a mindset of growth and you're open to it. I mean, look at where you're at today, and I'm excited to continue diving into your story. One of the things that you shared with me is you realized at some point that school was not a career path for you.
Correct.
How did you come to that realization?
That's a great question. So I'm sure we've all read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. He also has a book called, forget the first word, like something fake, or like everything is fake. He essentially dives deep into the school system, how it was developed by, the Rockefeller family, and a lot of it is more programming that they put us through. A lot of people are kind of in that same mentality where they just kind of follow the herd. And I realized for me that with all the opportunity online right now, like within sales or starting your own business, starting a podcast, you can be an influencer, you can literally do anything. Like, the potential is limitless. So for me, I realized I didn't want to be tied down financially, time-wise, career-wise. I didn't want to be defined by a box. I wanted more freedom for myself. So that's when I started kind of diving into things. I tried a lot of different things too, like affiliate marketing, Amazon FBA, like I tried everything, but social media was the first place that actually took off for me.
Interesting.
So I just wanted that freedom. That was a big piece.
That's huge, man. That's huge. So I happen to be a byproduct of it accidentally just not getting in the school system. Is mostly because my dad was like, I don't care if you go to college or not. He came here as an immigrant. He was more entrepreneurial. And my mom was like, you need to go to school, you need to go to school. And my dad was like, I don't care if you go to school as long as you do something, something. So he's like, get a real estate license or do this, do that. And that's kind of how I got my start. But that was cool to see, like, hey, like you found that book so profound. You're like, man, this makes a lot of sense. And, you probably saw the world around you and you're like, damn, everything's kind of making sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful. So it's funny you mentioned trying some other things, because that was actually my next question. Is you were looking at other online business paths. What are some things you considered before getting into like high ticket sales, and how did you transition into high ticket sales?
That's a great question. So I actually want to piggyback off what you said earlier, because another piece for me was school itself. I don't love the idea of learning from professors who aren't even, like, let's say you're going to go to business school and learn from a professor who hasn't even run his own business. He's read books, studied it. I'd much rather learn from Mike, or like yourself, or Trish, or Christian. Like, I want to learn from people who are doing what I want to do. So I felt like for school, it didn't give you that mentorship where you were learning from someone who's like 10 steps ahead of you.
That's right.
They're just reading off your curriculum.
That's
so
exactly right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. That's huge.
That's
a big
the same
piece
thing I felt, by the way, because I would go to class and like some of the things I would hear them tell me, I'm like, yeah, have you done this before? Is like the first thing that would come to my mind. Like, why are you teaching me about this if you haven't actually went out there and done that? And that's literally like 2 weeks in college. I like came to that realization. I walked out of class. I was like, this place is not for me. I just couldn't do it.
No, because it's like, why would you want to learn from someone who hasn't done what you want to do?
That's right.
So I fully agree with that.
That's right.
100%. To answer your question though, we went on a bit of a tangent. So for me, how I got into high ticket, so it was about 4 years back when COVID hit. That's when I started growing my own personal brand. Like we kind of touched on earlier, after about a year, roughly I had like an audience of 1 million people. So I was doing really well.
1 million people, guys, 1 million people. That's crazy.
So the guy I told you about, who I was inspired by, Alex.
Yep.
I worked with his mentor, Abraham.
Okay.
To start my own mindset coaching. So I was in school at the time, so it was hard to balance, school 8 to 3 and then working, 3 to 10.
Sure.
It was a lot. So coaching went well. I love being a coach. I feel like I'm a good leader, good communicator, but the thing about running your own business, as I'm sure you know, you have to do all the content, all the marketing, all the sales, all the fulfillment, all the coaching, like everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it got a lot. So I had a really pivotal moment, and I'll try and open up a little bit more. This is hard to talk about, but I had a night where I was feeling really overwhelmed. Like I was sitting in my room just in like tears, just trying to figure out what the next step was for me, because I had been going through so much with my own coaching business where it was fulfilling, but it wasn't at the level where I wanted it to be.
Sure.
So what I'm getting at is I feel like there's pivotal moments we have where the pain that we're feeling at that point, or the depression, the anxiety, whatever it is, moments like that where you can sit and reflect and really think, okay, if I continue thinking like this, doing this, where am I going to be 5-10 years from now? So for me, that was a pivotal moment where I took the pain that I was feeling and really self-reflected, which is very painful to do. And I was like, okay, I need something new. So that's when I reached out to Ian and landed a job at Shred. That was in December 2022. So it's almost been 2 years.
Wow.
And then everything kind of took off since.
So what I hear you saying is, you went to school, you're juggling, working, trying to build your coaching business, content, all at the same time. Yeah. That's a lot of hats to be wearing, a lot of hours of the day. And you realize, like, man, like, with where I'm at and the things I'm doing, is this really gonna get me to the path of where I want to go right now? You did some self-reflection, you realize, okay, cool, like maybe I should consider going this route. Found One Call Closers at the time, and kind of the rest is history from there.
Absolutely, yeah. So my first year in sales, from January 2023, it would have been. Yes, time's gone by way too quick. Yeah. So January, I was actually still in school, so I would go to school like 8 to 3 and then work. Wow. I would take calls from 3 to 10.
Wow.
And luckily I hit KPI that month to stay on the team. And I had no idea too. It was at the end of the month and I was checking. I was like, oh, okay, perfect.
Did it.
Yeah, but I feel for me, I kind of coasted from January until September, where I was kind of learning the ins and outs of sales and going through the process. But what really flipped things for me was when I went through a bit of a heartbreak last September. So I was with someone where I've noticed we were very on and off. Every time it was off, my sales would kind of dip. It was like that. So that plays into the energy piece.
I know that pattern very well from coaching a lot of closers. Every time something's off on the leaderboard, usually something personal is happening in their life. Exactly. Whether that's a relationship or family or kids or whatever. Yeah, 100%.
Like I really believe, and I'm sure you do as well, protecting your energy is huge.
100%.
Because with manifestation, law of attraction, we're all manifesting whether we know it or not. Your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, it all stems from within.
That's right.
So if you're in a place where someone's draining you mentally, emotionally, physically, or a job's draining you, then obviously it's not right for you. Like Tony Robbins always says, you gotta do what fills your cup. So at that point, it was all about me filling my own energy.
So on that note, because actually it's like we're going in the exact order to have everything laid out. This is great. So I was going to bring up, since you had mentioned it with me, you had a tough ending relationship, but you channeled that energy, like you mentioned, to becoming the #1 sales rep in the company. Okay, that's huge, guys. What advice would you give to someone to turn personal setbacks into professional success?
I love that question so much. I love it. So we've all been through heartbreak, pain, painful friendships. It's just a part of life. For me, whether this is healthy or not, what I like to do is I take that pain and I kind of use it as fuel. So a lot of people, they strive towards a goal, which is great. But if you're going towards a goal and you have a fire beneath you, because you want to either, prove people wrong or just become the best version of yourself, like that's the best revenge always. So
I think we just learned a little bit about that at Patrick McDavid's event. Your next 5 moves, like you have to understand who your enemies are, and your enemies are not just necessarily people that have always done the worst things to you and whatnot. Like you can choose your enemies wisely is the entirety of it. But yes, you use those experiences that you had to basically propel you to move forward and fuel you to become that next best version of yourself. And I'm sure I would love to hear from you, like if there are days where you're maybe not feeling so inspired, because I can't imagine Ava's waking up every day fired up. I would imagine like, hey, you're human and there's still going to be highs and lows and there's still going to be emotional kind of things. But I would love to hear like when you are in those moments, just like I would love to hear from you, like are those the things you think back to, whether it's this experience or maybe others you've had, to like if you are in kind of a like, man, the inspiration isn't there, you can tap into that and kind of bring that out of yourself?
Yes, that's huge. So anytime people say something or they try and throw a dig at you or that like that you get from that, that's what I like to use as motivation. That's awesome. Anytime I feel down or uninspired, because especially in sales, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. The financial freedom is there, the independence is there, I can set my own schedule. We have an amazing culture, like I've got to meet new people, develop myself, develop emotional intelligence, like a lot of good skills. But sales also comes with, like, it's isolating, right? It can be very demanding. Burnout is a real thing. It's a lot of work, like you really gotta put in the work. So for me, when I don't feel as inspired, which 95% of the time, I don't. Nobody does.
That's huge to hear, guys. That the number one rep right now is talking about she's not inspired more than 90% of the time, right? Sorry, I just have to throw that in there for some context over there. I think it's important for people to hear that.
Yes, it's not about motivation. It's always about discipline. Like even the people you see who are where you want to be, they want what you have, but they don't want the work that you put in to get there.
Oh, so powerful.
That was, I didn't say that. That was a quote I heard a while ago, but that hit so hard, because you might see, Ava hit 350, 390, whatever it is in a month, and that's great, but they didn't see me sitting at my desk from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. banging out 10 to 15 calls a day for 7 days a week.
That's right.
They didn't see that. They didn't see when I was sleep deprived or tired. And there's a lot of things that...
Isolated, nobody around. Like, sure, maybe there's friends and family and stuff, but like, do they really get what you're doing? Right? It's a different game when you're in the other side of things.
It is. But I believe to get anything that is worthwhile, you need that period of isolation. And for me, that was it's September now, the last 8 months. I've just been isolating, working, pouring myself into work. And of course, I achieve financial freedom through that, but there's also a need for balance too. Sure. I'm starting to learn, which I'm sure we'll touch on.
I do want to get into that. I'm going to skip a few questions forward because I think since we're on that topic, you've spoken about experiencing burnout after working 10 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yes.
What signs of burnout should salespeople watch out for, and is there anything they could do to reset it when it hits?
Yeah, amazing question. So for me, I recognized it where I noticed my numbers were declining. I wasn't closing calls like I should be. My eyes were like half open because I was so tired. But the big piece for me was the mental burnout. Like when you take so many calls every day, you say the same thing, it gets very repetitive. Yeah. So for me, it was, because I believe sales is like mental chess. Like the minute you get on a call with them, you're trying to put the puzzle pieces together for them so they think it's their idea. But for me, I taken so many calls because I worked for like 3 weeks straight and not a single day off. And I couldn't think. I get on the call and I wasn't getting enough pain points throughout the discovery. So for me, it was just a lack of mental clarity.
That's right.
That's how I knew I was burnt out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to answer your question now, how I reset from it, it's just about taking time off. So for me, I just took 5 days away from the calendar, took a reset. I was sleeping lots, walking lots, doing things that involve more of the creative mind and less like analytical. That's how I reset.
Damn, that's powerful right there. You know, I've always heard of people say take time off, but like the way you just described it, what you said, but you just used the phrase.
Analytical, creative?
Yes. You tapped into your creative side of things outside of the calls, right? Because I mean, sales is some form of an art, I believe, but like you channeled into different forms of that outside of calls is what I hear you kind of saying.
Yeah, huge. Because we use, I don't know if it's right brain, left brain, whatever. It's very analytical sales because you're trying to put the puzzle pieces together. So focusing more on like, you know, doing yoga or painting or reading a book or spending time with family members. Because if we're always analytical, we're kind of pouring out of our cup.
Yes.
But if your cup isn't being filled up outside of work, meaning you're not spending time with family, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not reading books, you're not going on walks, you're not working out, and you're just working, eventually that cup, it's gonna run dry. So for me, it was recognizing that, and I made that mistake, but now I know I gotta fill my cup too.
Yeah.
Or else it's just gonna burn out, which I don't want.
I hear you, man. It's so this is high level stuff, guys. Like this is not stuff you could just get anywhere online. Like you have to have taken a lot of calls and had a lot of experience doing this every single day to understand like where Ava's coming from. And if you're in the game, you understand exactly where she's coming from. So that's huge. I think there's a lot of people that can actually benefit from that message. And I've definitely been in that spot where I'm like, man, I get upset because I'm like, I'm even getting in my calls and I'm like doing the same thing, expecting something different. I'm just in this pattern. And I've had times where I've hit up Rich. I'm like, Rich, what am I doing wrong? Like, dude, and I just, to your point is like, dude, when you know sales kind of gets boring and it's repetitive, like that's when you know you made it in my mind. Cause it's like, you know exactly how every call is going to go. I'm sure for me, when I was selling, and I'm doing a lot more coaching these days, but when I was selling offers, like I knew within the first 30 seconds to a minute if I was going to be able to kind of close that person or not. I kind of get a feeling, kind of get the vibe, right? And it's like, it wasn't always that way. Maybe sometimes it was 5, 10, 15 minutes and then I reduced that time down and then it's like, man, but then when you know it so well and you like you said, you're saying the same thing every time, it's like, that kind of gets boring. And I don't like to get bored, right? It's like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? But what I hear you saying is like, hey, if you end up in that pattern where you realize you're going down that path, take some time away, do some creative stuff, tap into some other different parts of your creativity outside of just sales and have that reset and come back stronger.
100%.
I love
then
that.
You come back mentally clear, physically better. It's huge.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Man, this is all good stuff, man. This is powerful stuff right here, guys. I want to get into, I'm not sure if it was the same mentor you mentioned earlier that kind of helped you with some of the stuff you talked about, but you read a book called Selling with Love and you shared that sales is an energy exchange.
Yes.
Can you please explain like what that means and how that's impacted how you close deals?
Yes, I would love to. It's like my favorite topic.
Okay, let's go.
So Selling with Love, I believe the author is Mark Campbell, if I got that right.
Okay.
I'm terrible with names, so hopefully that's correct. But that's correct. So when I was doing, you're looking it up.
Yeah, Jason Mark Campbell, good. Yeah,
okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Okay, amazing. So the mentor I worked with in order to grow my mindset coaching business, he was the one who introduced me to the book.
Okay.
And that was my first type of sales training it's an energy exchange. So I think for me, developing that foundation was huge. So to elaborate on what that means though, when you start the call off by thinking, okay, I need to close, I got to pay my bills, they need to buy, what if I don't make a sale, I haven't closed the last 5 calls. Like if you come in to the call from a scarcity mindset, people can feel that.
Yeah.
It's very off-putting.
It's a vibe.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Because the goal of sales, it's to create that gap from where they are right now, where they want to be. By questioning, asking them profound questions, you're building that gap. So that way when you pitch, the pitch is easy because you're just filling in that gap when they have the urgency. So it's a sale. That's how it's made. So to answer the question though, in order to do a good discovery, you need to come from a place of genuinely wanting to help that person. If you're coming in, oh, it's all about me, like I need to make the commission, I need to pay my bills. People can feel that, right? Commission breath. I'm sure we. I'm sure we've all heard that.
Yep.
But what changed things was trying to genuinely connect with the person and come from a place of really wanting to help them. Because the questions you ask, I believe the sale is made in the discovery. If you have a good, always.
Same page.
Always. If you have a good discovery, you don't even need to pitch. Like, here's my card info. Like, they're done. So the questions you ask, though, to create that gap are important. But I believe intention is more important. So if your intention is to make the sale, not to help them, then there's going to be a disconnect there. So intention is always huge. That's been the biggest thing for me.
That's powerful, man. That's so powerful. And see, when I'm thinking like initially, when I'm thinking like energy exchange, because I'm if you couldn't tell, very high energy, very loud, oftentimes, as people like to say a lot. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, is that what she's referring to? Well, it's like, no, that's not what she's referring to. And energy, and you just explained it very well on exactly what that means. And so if you're out there and you think like, hey, you have to be like me to close deals, look how soft-spoken Ava is, and she's like the #1 sales rep, right? So I'm glad you provided that clarity because I think it was huge for me, and I think it's going to be huge for our listener as well.
100%. Yeah, you don't need to be, like, just be yourself. For me, it wouldn't work to be like, hey, how's it going? Let's do this.
It's not you.
No,
it's just me. People always, the first time I met Ian, he looked at Rich, he's like, bro, is this guy always like this? Like, is he always on? He's like, bro, this is him. Like, he's not pretending to be someone he's not, it's just me. So that's funny. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
That's hilarious.
So we talked about, so it's funny because my next question is, it was about kind of like detaching from the sale. You just got into that a little bit. One of the things I'd like to know, and I think you shared some stuff earlier that I heard you say, but if there's anything you'd like to add on, sales is all about mindset, self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
Do you have, other than, hey, maybe taking some time off, that's important, we talked about that. Other than that, do you have a hack that maybe you use to stay disciplined? If motivation is low, or like maybe you just, I don't know, maybe you came off the time off and things are still not like, not that they're not changed, but like, there's just days where it's like, man, some days are different and other days are different in sales. There's some highs and lows there. Is there anything else that maybe you do that you can share with the listener as far as like a day-to-day hack or something?
Absolutely. A day-to-day hack to keep that motivation and discipline?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I'm very structured, very analytical. So when I was developing my skill set back in October to December last year, so 2023, time goes by so quick. The lead flow was a little bit slower at that time, maybe 3-5 calls a day. So it was like perfect opportunity to start developing skills, doing lots of coaching. So what I'm getting at is, I believe manifestation, you have to act like the person you want to become. So I thought to myself, okay, what does a top performer do? What's their routines? What do their habits look like? So #1 for me was eliminating distractions. So I was very addicted to social media, Instagram, TikTok, deleting those, not the account, just the app. I just got rid of it off my phone. That was huge. #2 was, again, distancing myself from people who weren't filling my cup energetically. And then third thing was just developing those routines and systems to get me to where I want to be.
That's huge.
For me, it was 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I'd be at my desk. Whether I was learning, whether I was actually taking calls, I was doing some type of development. So that way when the lead flow did pick up, I had those routines and habits in place.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but not every day is going to be like, oh my God, I'm so excited to get, 5 hours of sleep. Take 10 calls tomorrow. I just can't wait.
Yeah.
So oftentimes you wake up and it's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
But it's just all about keeping consistent.
What I hear you saying is control over what you're seeing throughout your day, right?
Yep.
What I hear you saying is really actually simple. Now, simple doesn't always mean it's easy. It's like, well, hey, eliminate distractions, surround yourself with the right environment,
Yep.
and have a structure throughout your day. And it's like,
Exactly.
it's if you tell someone, it's like, oh, that's easy, but like, dude, like, are you actually doing it? Are you able to stick to that plan every single day consistently throughout the week, not just 1 day or 2 days, or just doing it for a week or two, and then by the time it's week 3 or week 4, it's like, you're not sticking to the same structure, right? And you're back into social media. You're not really operating with a calendar, and you're not really aligned anymore, right? And then you look at, oh man, what happened? Well, dude, you fell out of alignment, you know? And so I think that's super powerful, super
100%,
powerful.
100%. Everything has to be aligned, like with manifestation. I believe I'm very intuitive, very aligned energetically. So if you have a goal set, that's the intention. But to actually reach the goal, you have to have those systems and routines in place. Because if you don't, and you're just kind of like wishing, you have to put the work behind it. So yeah, for me, it was, you know, taking calls from 8 to 6 and just keeping consistent, even if there's, let's say, for example, I have a no-show. They don't join after 5 minutes, but I'm like, oh, I've already taken 8 calls today. Do I really want to get them? They're my last call. But for me, I stay disciplined. I'm like, okay, you have a rule with yourself. You're going to call them after 5 minutes of no-show and then get them on the call.
Dang.
So it was just like those little routines. Like for when it comes down to goals, we can't be emotional about it. Especially for us women, that can be hard to turn off that more feminine energy of being emotional about things and just be a little bit more stoic and say, okay, even if I don't feel like doing this, I'm still going to show up and I'm still going to perform. So that was big for me.
Damn, guys, this is gold nuggets right here. This is just freaking nuggets on nuggets on nuggets. This is profound wisdom. Like, you only get through here after having to take a lot of freaking calls and go through a lot of experience to have this kind of insight. So I'm so grateful Ava's on the podcast here. This is really powerful stuff, Ava. This is really cool. I think you're giving a lot of the secret sauces. We're talking a lot about like the insight. So I don't know if there's anything more you could add on to understanding how the heck does someone maintain almost 60% closing ratio? Like, I want to understand, like, how do you close deals so successfully? Do you have a framework you stick to? Do you just have this process, like you said earlier, like, hey, am I just doing my discovery and understanding, like, do I have a problem here to solve? And if I don't, maybe I'm going to get that person off the call and let them know I actually can't help them. How the heck do you maintain that type of a closing ratio? Because that's like unheard of.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. So there's a lot I can dive into. I want to be sure what I say, though, is clear and concise, and I can give like step by step to actually help you guys. So for me, I think foundation-wise, mindset and energy is most important initially. So I would recommend reading Selling with Love. That was a really profound book for me. But really, when you start to take calls, you have to approach it like, I want to help them, I want to serve them. So for me, I have pre-call mantras that I say. So I kind of sit there. It's kind of funny. I look ridiculous talking to myself, but I'll sit there and be like, okay, detach from the sale, keep the client in mind, have empathy, put yourself in their shoes, turn your emotional intelligence on, because it is a learned skill, very difficult. Communicate clearly, speak clearly, and just be in a good energetic state. That's
and
huge.
You do this before calls.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I always do that, because if you're not in the right frame of mind and you're approaching it with that scarcity mentality, you're not going to close. And then they're missing out, you're missing out. It's going to be a lose-lose. So that would be number one, is mindset. Second, I don't know if habits or routines are more important than the actual skill. We'll put skill second. So second would be to develop the actual, like, the science. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. The science of sales. So learning, how do I start my call? You know, am I going to say, hey, how are you? Am I going to introduce myself? What questions am I going to ask during the discovery? What gap am I trying to build for them? Like, getting through that, learning how to bridge, how to make them feel understood. That's been a big piece, actually. if you make people feel like you understand them and you understand their pain and you connect with them, that is huge. Because so many times in sales, and even for me when I was just coasting through things from January to September, I didn't really care a whole lot about helping them, just to be completely honest. Like, a lot of us were just going through the motions oftentimes. So
thank you for sharing that, because I think people need to hear that.
100%, yeah. But when you can still go through the motions but still have that intention.
Yes.
So when I flip things and recognize that I need to make them feel understood, and I thank Trish for a lot of this. She's been a big...
got Coach Trish in the background here, you know?
She's been a big help for me for learning how to really build that gap. So that way when you do pitch, and learning your pitch in and out is huge as well, then that just builds the gap for them. So second would be developing skill set. Even before that though, I didn't even talk about this, but conviction is huge. So when you're initially learning an offer, you just have to be crazy and like convince yourself, I'm convinced it's the best thing ever. Like, if you don't do this, your life will never be the same. So if you approach it like, this isn't about me, it's about genuinely helping them, and that person is actually missing out if I don't help them, if I don't make the sale.
Are you bought into what you're doing, guys?
Exactly. You have to have that conviction, because people can feel it. They can feel the trust. The trust will be built if you have that conviction. So that's huge. Third piece would be habits and routines. Like I mentioned, just having systems in place, because for me it's now like, I'm like a money printing machine kind of. So you just, I get up, I do this, I do that, I sit, I work, and then it's done. I have the skill set, I have the routines, the knowledge in place. So then it's just about keeping consistent after that, and always seeking out mentorship.
I love that. God, man, there's just so much in what Ava's breaking down and saying right now, guys. Like, if you want to make a lot of money, you need to listen to this episode like 5 times, and take freaking notes, because there's just too many gems in here. She's giving you the blueprint, how she became a money printing machine. And speaking of money printing machine, okay, so we did some numbers, and year to date, she's collected over $2.2 million in cash, maintained a steadily flow of over a 50% closing ratio, broke company records collecting $395,000 in a single month with an average order value of $3,000. Guys, $395,000 with an AOV of $3K. That's insane if you're in the space and can put some of those numbers together. With that being said, speaking of money printing machine, what has Ava's biggest month been here at One Call Closers in high ticket sales?
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so biggest month, Canadian or US? I'm just kidding.
Well, hey, let's start let's start US, and then we'll dive into Canadian and see what that looks like.
Canadian sounds better.
Yeah.
So my biggest month for me, with a few bonuses added in, I think it was like $50,000.
$50,000. Jeez Louise, guys, that's crazy. People have to work an entire freaking year here in the States or in Canada to make $50,000. I would imagine, just because I know a little bit about currency exchange, I would imagine that translates to an extra 20 to 25% Canadian, which probably equates to 70 plus K on that side of things.
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful. Very, very grateful.
Man, that's I mean, for I think for anyone that could be life changing. What did you do? Did you splurge at all? Did you spend the money on anything crazy? Like, do you have any future plans on how, like, you're a money printing machine now and you're doing some incredible things. You're having massive months pretty much every single time because you are the top of the board. What is Ava's plans to do with the money? Like, do you have anything that you splurge on or anything you're looking to invest into? I'd love to kind of hear any insight on that end.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course that was my best month, but I like to look at averages. So it's average 30 to 40K a month, which I'm very grateful for. Keeping
what can you do with an extra 30 to 40K a month?
So for me, I'm kind of boring. I don't like spending money. I don't want to splurge on bags or trips or cars. For me, I'm working on investing it right now. So if I'm working so hard at something and developing the skill set and building this nest egg for myself, the goal is to build my nest egg so big where I don't have to work eventually, or I can do what I want to do when I want. So for me, it's about taking the income I'm building right now and stocks, options, I want to invest it, grow it, live like I'm a brokey, which I pretty much do. So that way eventually, 3-5 years from now, I have a big nest egg built up and I can do what I want. So kind of retired, but
that's awesome.
thank you.
So you're still maintaining a simple lifestyle. You're not doing anything crazy. What I hear you saying is, I've realized the money is a vehicle to get me to a spot of getting to freedoms, options, and choices eventually.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
'Cause that's what we all want, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think other than pretty much every other product that we sell, other than V-Shred, right? Because V-Shred's, it's just weight loss. It's a little bit different, but we sell a lot of business coaching, personal coaching, right? To help you make money, to help you do this, to help you do that. Now, it's all about the vehicle. It's all about, getting the money. But like, if you ask everybody, like, dude, what's the money for? They all give me the same answer. It's just to get freedom. Like, literally, that's what it boils down to. Like, in some way, shape, or form, if you regurgitate what they said back to you and make them feel heard and understood, kind of like we talked about earlier, like, it all boils down to just getting to a spot of freedom. And that's what I kind of realized. It's like, we all want the money, but what's the money for? It's just a tool, right? It's just a vehicle to get you to that spot.
Exactly.
So man, bravo. That's freaking incredible to do 30, 40K, over 50K a month, and getting those. By the way, Ava's one of the few closers that is outside of the US. Guys, we have a lot of closers in all sorts of countries, getting even more than a 20 to 25% currency exchange difference, right? Whether they're in Thailand or they're in this country or they're in that country, there's so many opportunities within the remote high ticket space that you can leverage. And there's so many people, I hate to say it, that I see that have so much more potential for more, but they settle for just 10K a month or 8K a month or this or that. When like, damn, bro, like what I've realized is from experience, like opportunities come and go. And like, it's here today, it's gone tomorrow. Like, are you maximizing the opportunity that's in front of you right now? Because I promise things don't last, guys. Like, they come and go, right? And this opportunity right now, the same offer Ava's on for V-Shred, like, it's here today, but I can't play God. I don't know how long it's going to be around. I don't know how long V-Shred could shut down tomorrow for all I know, right? Are you operating with urgency as if every day is your last day? Like, is the question you need to be asking yourself. And she just gave you the blueprint for everything you can be doing on your day-to-day to get to that next level, man. So that's powerful stuff.
I love it.
I'm fired up if you can't tell.
I love it, And I fully agree with that. You need urgency behind everything you're doing. Like, we even talk about that in sales, right? You need to say to people, get the pain behind the pain. So what's your pain behind the pain? Like you said, money, that's surface, but below that is freedom, traveling, being able to financially support your family, retired parents, like those deeper goals. That's what drives us.
100%. Yeah. I love that. Love it.
Man,
so we talked a little bit about how to balance your time out a little bit. So we talked a little bit about discipline. So we kind of got into that. I'm curious because earlier, one thing I didn't kind of follow up on, I was just curious to get a perspective from you. Like when you said like, hey, you realize like college is not necessarily for you. Did you have support from friends and family? Like were people like, oh man, hey, I'm in alignment with that? Or was it like, what are you kind of thinking? And why are you thinking about going down that path? Like if you could walk us through like what support was like from friends and family and how they feel about it now. Maybe, and I don't know if you've shared where you're at now with some of those folks, but maybe they see and they're like, wow, or not. I would love to kind of, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that.
100%. I think that's a great question because relationships are huge. So for me, in terms of friendships, that was always a little bit more difficult for me as I was growing up through school. So friendship-wise, I wouldn't really say that's been a big determining factor for me, or not determining factor, but something that I have to be aware of. It was more, actually, you know what? There was a little bit, because a lot of my peers, they are in school or, they are starting to work or they're at college, university in that era of their life. And for me, obviously being a little bit younger, it can be hard to have that disconnect. Like I feel like I'm much further along the journey than a lot of people. So it can be hard to connect. And that just brings it back to that feeling of isolation and loneliness, which it's tough to talk about on camera, of course, but always I'm trying to be as open and vulnerable as I can. That can be tough. So that's not always easy.
Yeah.
But in terms of family and support, because I know my parents are going to watch this, I love them so much. Like, I think having a good relationship with your parents is huge. Having support from family is huge. But it was scary initially because, you know, the generation behind us and behind me, a lot of those behaviors were instilled that you need school to be successful. You need university, you need college, you need to have that piece of paper in order to get to a lot of places. And I mean, if you're going to be a lawyer, doctor, amazing, go for it. But in a lot of places in life, you don't need that. So initially, it was tough, but they had belief in me, if that makes sense. So when I first started getting into coaching, it was going okay, but I wouldn't be able to maintain that long term, like if I was going to live on my own. So once I finished school and started working full time, I made like $100K my first year. So I was like, okay, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, $100K first year in high ticket sales. That's crazy.
So that gave them belief where they're like, okay, amazing, do what you need to do, we support it, but it is a big mindset shift initially. So that can be tough, but they're very supportive, so I'm very grateful.
That's amazing to hear that. Because I know that could be a struggle, and till today, my mom still does, she thinks I should still go back to school, you know, and what I'm doing today. I'm like, and I have to always point out to her, I'm like, Mom, like, can you point me to one person in our family that has gone to school that's making like more money than me? And you know, that's like and it still doesn't click. And then the ones that are, let's just say they are, they all own businesses. So and they all didn't go to school, and they're entrepreneurs. So I'm just like, but she's so bought into that mindset of where she comes from in her country and as an immigrant, and the only way to success back then was that, and that's ingrained in her type of a thing. But that's huge. And by the way, I should add this. I know I mentioned like opportunities come and go earlier, and Vishra could be here today, gone tomorrow. For Ava, guys, it's not going to make a difference, right? She can take all these skill sets, all this knowledge, everything she's breaking down with you, and she can apply it on any other offer and have the same freaking result, right? So if you get dialed in and you know what you're doing, it doesn't matter where you're at, whether it's here, whether it's there, like she's going to be able to duplicate and replicate herself and get the same results no matter where she is, because that all this stuff is going to be stuck with her for life. Like, that's the one thing, like you could lose everything in your life. You can lose the houses, you can lose the cars, you can get into an accident, bad accident, and someone can sue you and take everything away. All sorts of things can happen. One thing they'll never be able to take from you, Ava, is your mindset, your skill sets, your habits, right? All that stuff can still be duplicatable is what I want you guys to take away from everything she's sharing.
100%, especially within sales, like everything is sales. Like selling, you know, your spouse on staying with you, relationships, how you present yourself, how you talk, your appearance, like everything you do is sales, right? So even learning how to go through a sales call, that's cool, good, you can make money, but a lot of those skills, communication-wise, emotional intelligence, those are things I want to work on as well. But when you develop those skills, they can also help you in other areas too. So I fully agree with that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Love it.
Couple more questions and we'll wrap it up here.
Absolutely.
Because we got to get out of here because it's they're going to probably come and kick us out of this Airbnb soon. What's next for your sales journey? I mean, do you have any new goals, any new projects you're excited about that maybe you're working on or that you want to share with us at all?
Yeah, I love that question. So for me, of course, sales, it's been a great vehicle and great opportunity. Again, I'm extremely grateful for you and Rich and everyone. The opportunity's been so amazing. But at some point, you are kind of capped, right? You can only take so many calls. You can only sell so many people. You can only get so much commission. So I feel for me, I've gotten to a place where I'm happy, I'm comfortable. But figuring out what the next step is, that's what the next step is for me, to figure that out. So whether that's more leadership or management, I want to take this skill set I have and continue to develop and evolve so I'm not capped. So that's kind of the goal for me. But to kind of paint a prettier picture, maybe the next 5-10 years, I'd see myself traveling more or having more time to do the things I really enjoy, which I love, walking, sitting on patios and going to the gym, just having more time for myself.
Yeah.
That's really the end goal. But yeah, I am trying to figure out the next step, which is, I believe, growth. Like, you're always trying to just build. That's huge. If you're not, what's that one quote? If you're not growing, you're dying. Something like that.
100%. Yeah. That's so powerful. And shout out to your mom and dad. You're such an amazing human being. She's so humble. She's, the way she talks, very eloquent, and you're so clear, concise on what you want. Like you mentioned, walking, gym, like you know exactly how you want your life to go, and to have that level of clarity is unbelievable, and I think it's huge. So that's awesome. That's awesome.
I love it.
Couple fun questions. You might not have an answer for them, and if you don't get hung up on it. That's totally fine.
Go for it.
Do you maybe have a favorite sales movie or TV show at all? Like, is there anything that kind of comes to mind in the sales realm of things as far as a movie or TV show?
I mean, of course, I'll say Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay, all right, cool.
I thought that movie was so funny. It's so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It's just so ridiculous. Definitely a good watch.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, one thing I'm curious on, is there a sales thought leader or influencer in the space right now, or maybe a past one in a past time, right, dead or alive, that you would maybe want to spend an hour and get coaching or spend and have dinner with and pick their brain? And if so, like, who would that individual be and why? And it could be someone you've already maybe mentored and coached with, but I don't know if there's someone that maybe comes to mind.
I think I would want to have a dinner with probably Napoleon Hill, even though he's not.
Sure.
Yeah, he's dead. So, but in theory, because he's interviewed like hundreds of the most successful people.
That's right.
That would be an insane dinner to have. I would just like pick his brain on everything, on how they did it or what their mindsets were. Because Think and Grow Rich, that's been one of like my most pivotal books I've read personally, not just financially, but it teaches you a lot about the law of attraction.
That's right.
I'd want to have a dinner with him. That would
That's
be so
awesome.
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd pay for that.
Okay, cool. Well, Ava, any final thoughts? Is there anything I haven't asked you, or is there anything I haven't brought up that maybe you would want to share with our listener today?
Of course.
Any final thoughts?
Of course. I would say if you're just getting into sales, having confidence in yourself is huge, even if you're not sure how it's gonna go or you're nervous. Trying something new is always scary, but just take the first step, take the first call, start learning, start developing, develop discipline, listen to David Goggins. I love him.
Yeah, let's go.
He's the best. Just start developing yourself. I mean, that's the biggest piece, I'd say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, guys, I want to wrap it up. Ava, thank you so much for coming on today's podcast.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you spending the time and sharing it with me. It's been very profound. I'm going to go back and re-listen to it and take notes myself, and you should be as well, guys. But that being said, if you're interested in coaching with us, right, and maybe potentially getting placement within our sales agency, one-call closers, and getting actual coaching on the offer you get placed on, an offer where you could potentially be the #1 rep in the company, right, and write out that same offer that Ava's writing out, guys, click the first link in the description below, schedule a call with us, and you can talk about what coaching's actually like, right? Ava gave a lot of insight on how it's like coaching with Trish, and we have a lot of other amazing coaches that can help you out get to that next level. So don't reinvent the wheel. Like, we already have offers that we've proven. We've done over $200 million in sales. We've taken over 250,000 sales calls, all within the last 5 years. And if you're looking to tap into that and just understand, like, how can I fast track this? If you're looking for a fast track way, click that first link and talk about coaching with us. We can get you coaching plus placement. And if that's not you right now, and you're just more so like, hey, I'm newer to this, I'm trying to figure it all out, click the second link in our description below. You'll be able to access our school community. It's completely free. We give you 5 days a week of live coaching. We also give you courses so you can learn frameworks and understand like how we do things around here and how you can apply those same methodologies in just the coaching remote space, right, for high ticket sales. So again, thank you so much, Ava. We appreciate you so much. You're so awesome. I want to shout out your parents again, because I think they've spent and invested a lot of time in you. I don't think you became the person you are by accident necessarily. I think you come from an amazing family. So shout out to your parents. And just thank you so much for sharing all this wisdom, this insight that like you would literally have to spend years on to figure out what you've done. So it's very profound. I'm excited again to go back and dig into it myself. But that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.